Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Is it getting better? Okay, if I can have your attention so you can continue eating. You're not going to bother us. It's just good to be back together as the body of Christ. Amen. Last week we had that worship session, and Bob came up front and he talked a little about the tree of life, the picture that God showed him. And so he asked me to just share something about that. And so I went back, and my first reaction was, how many of you have seen Avatar? Anybody seen that? You know, the tree in the end where everybody is around there and it's connected. And I thought that'd be a really good picture to show a little clip, but then I watched it again this weekend just to find out where in the timeline it is. And I don't think half-naked blue people represent the kingdom well. So that's why we don't have the clip. Anyway. Yes, they were. All right. So when you talk about the tree of life, there's not a lot of scriptures about the tree of life in the Bible. The scriptures that you will find is in Genesis chapter 2 and 3. And then Revelations 22, you will see another reference to that. And so there's a couple of things about the tree of life that I think is really important. I want to take two concepts out of that for us today, just to keep in the back of our minds as we move forward as a body of believers. How many of you remember the story in Genesis chapter 2 where God puts Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden, and then he basically says to them, do you want me to read the scripture or can I just quote it? All right.
Read it.
So God says to Adam and Eve that here's the requirements. You can eat of anything in the garden, but you cannot eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, next to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was the tree of life. So if I can give you an example, I will give you this. If I have a red cup and a blue cup, and I say to you, you can use any cup you want, but you cannot drink from the blue cup. How many choices do you have left? I want everybody to say that, one choice. Because that's the first thing I learned from the tree of life is that God didn't say there's two choices in the garden. There was two trees in the garden. And there was very specific commands as to what to partake of and what not to partake of. And so we only have one choice. When it comes to the tree of life, we only have one choice. Let me make it more simple for you to understand. If you say you love God but you hate your brother, you are not eating from the right tree. If you are still carnally minded and not spiritually minded, you are still choosing the wrong tree. If you are still religious and not in relationship, you are still eating from the wrong tree. Hello? Here's the thing. We don't have a choice to eat from anything else but the tree of life. And if we can get that concept today, it will help us. Here's what God says in Deuteronomy 30 when he gives the blessing and the curses to Moses to give to Israel. He says, choose you this day between life and death. Now the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, it's both good and evil. There's a lot of good things that will still kill you. Just because it sounds good, it doesn't mean it's God. And we need to make sure that when we partake of something or sign up for something, that we make sure that we start eating from the tree of life and not the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. If you are still political and not kingdom, you're eating from the wrong tree. I know I'm going to step on toes, but I don't care. Because Jesus would never walk around with a plaque opposing the Roman government. That's not why He came. He came to bring the kingdom. And the kingdom comes when we demonstrate it. If we are still radical instead of evangelical, we are eating from the wrong tree. Hello? Because somehow we've changed evangelism for radicalism. Now, do I vote? Yes, I vote. But my vote is not motivated by political party. It is motivated because I eat from the tree of life. And I say, God, what will you choose in this situation? So I sat down, Megan, can I pick on you, with Megan a couple of weeks ago. And Megan asked me a question, and I asked her, I said, do you want the kingdom answer, a religious answer, or a political answer? Because those are the voices that's vying for our attention. And if we go political or religious, we're not eating from the right tree. See, if we're gonna lead a next generation into what God has planned for a time such as this, we will have to help them eat from the right tree. So that's the first thing I see when we look at the tree of life, is that we only have one choice. Here's what Jesus says. If you want to follow me and you're not willing to die, you're not worthy. You only have one choice. If you put your hand to the plow and you look back, you're not worthy. You only have one choice. You're either in or you're not. It amazes me that in the Muslim world, they don't mind telling you, if you become a Muslim and you convert back, we'll kill you. So you know what you're signing up for. But somehow in the gospel of Jesus, we're scared to tell the people, these are the terms. The terms is, it's Him and nothing else. Hello? Yeah. We only have one choice. So we need to choose right. Here's the second thing I learned from the tree of life. Is simply this, because the enemy comes and he says to Eve, he says, is it so that God said that you shall not eat of this tree? He's talking about the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The word for knowledge, say in the Hebrew, is yada. The root word comes yada, and it means to know, where it says in the Old King James Version, Adam knew Eve and she bore a son. It means that intimate knowledge. But that's not the only meaning for that word. Another meaning for that word is also this: the right to decide. When God said you cannot eat of this tree, God was in essence saying you can't eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You will never have the right to decide what's right and wrong. That's my responsibility.
That's good.
And all over the world today, the biggest battle for people is, I want to decide what I want to do. If you want to live your life, making up your own mind about what you want to do, you're still eating from the wrong tree. God already spelled it out. Here's what the kingdom is about. Here's what I'm going to expect you to do. And we need to learn to eat from that tree. Now, I'm going to say 10 minutes. Let me just close up on this. Because Bob asked me this morning, can you go 50 minutes? You're like, yeah, I think I can. Psalms 1. Blessed is the man who doesn't walk in the way, stand of the unrighteous, but his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his word he meditates day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the waters, who bears its fruit in its season, and whose leaves does not wither. Isaiah 61, you all know that one, because it starts off where it says, same as in Luke 4:18, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because He has anointed me. But then he goes on, because he's talking about Jesus' calling. He says, and I will give you beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that you might be trees of righteousness. Revelation 21, I'm just going to pull that in there, because Revelation 22, he says, I saw a river, pure river, coming out of the throne of God, and on either side of the street, there's a river, and next to the river are trees planted, and he calls it the trees of life. Because here's what happens when we partake of Jesus. He is the tree of life. Did you know that? When we partake of Jesus, we become part of that tree. John chapter 15, Jesus says, I'm the vine, you are the branches. Without me, you can do nothing. So our first thing is to choose the tree. The second option we have is we can't question God's motive anymore, because He's doing His thing in the earth today. He determines what the kingdom is and where it's going. And then lastly, we got to understand that when a branch on a vine, for that branch to produce fruit, He's not sitting there going like, I got one grape. It's the most easy thing to do. If you are connected to the vine, the fruit is an outflow of not what you do, it's an outflow of what's in the branch or the vine. So how do we manifest the tree of life? We rest in God and we feed on Him. Last scripture, John chapter 8, verse 32. You all know that one. You shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you. What does 31 say? If you abide in me, and I abide in you, then you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. It's about abiding and feeding and eating from the right tree. 4 chapters in the Bible, Genesis 1 and 2, Revelations 21, 22. Starts in the garden, it ends in the garden. Everything in between is what do you choose to feed on. So ask Bill, Bob's going to come up and share what is ahead for us as a ministry. And please, can we stop saying this is an organization? Because it's not an organization, it's an organism. Hello? We're not a business, we're a ministry. And the life of Christ is in this ministry. And so He is planning. Every one of us called for a time such as this to be part of what God is about to do in the earth. I don't want to miss it, but I want to make sure that I eat and feed on the right tree. Can I pray over us? Papa, thank you so much for your word. Thank you for the tree of life. Jesus said, if you eat my flesh, drink my blood, you have part of me. And so, Father, we want to feed on you. You are the tree of life. You are the one that produces fruit in us. And sometimes we need some trimming and some cutting back. And thank you for doing that so that we can bear more fruit. And I pray as we go forward from here, God, that our choice will always be you. We only have one choice. It's you and nothing else. It's your kingdom and nothing else. And if we seek your kingdom first, all these other things will be added unto us. Father, we pray that we'll stay focused and stay on par and on line with what you want to do through this ministry in this day. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thanks, Dion. The reason that one of the reasons that I've asked Dion, I got a lot of thoughts in my mind and my spirit that I kind of want to unpack, and then I want to share a commitment with you. Before I do that, I want to look at each of you and to a person, looking at those on the camera as well, and just say thank you. Thank you. We had a board meeting last week, and it had been a while since we'd gathered in the calm, where we didn't have some significant event where we needed a significant decision to go do something. And I just recounted what's happened since 1st of March, and there's been a lot of changes. And I'm realizing, even in my own spirit, that I was moving forward at a very rapid pace and felt the weight of a lot of significant decisions. And even in the last couple of weeks have presented some time to rest in the Lord in a way that's helped giving me perspective. And one of the perspectives that I have is frankly just a great degree of confidence in the people that I'm journeying with. I do. I trust you guys. I love you guys. And I'm encouraged by the possibilities going forward. Like you guys, we're living in this world that has this broad context to it. And I've been spending a lot of time reading and praying about God's kingdom in the midst of the world. And they're different. Dion touched on it for a second. But today in our nation, we live in something that has a great deal of chaos underneath of it. The political systems, the interrelational and racial systems, the nature of our governments with other governments, the financial institutions, the churches have all had their moorings shaken to the core. And I can, like you, probably begin to shake in the midst of that siphoning that's happening in each of those different organizations until I realize that the enemy has dominion over the earth. God has dominion over the kingdom. He brought Jesus for us to follow, to bring in the midst of the world a kingdom that is not in it, but is not of it, but is in it. And with that, my commitment to you guys, we're going to talk about a lot of things, but this is in my spirit as a leader. that is not here to inspire. I'm just going to make a promise to you that the tree of life, not a program, not a finance, not a new direction, not an edict, not a mission statement, but Jesus and his kingdom is going to be brought to the center of the room with every ounce of influence that I can garner amongst you. And we'll take that tree of life and that commitment to Jesus and his kingdom, knowing that it's in the midst of a world of chaos, because he said that that is the solution. I have brought the solution through your faithfulness in me. We have a point in time in history that presents us a lot of opportunity. There's chaos in the world. We can live in the peace of Jesus Christ as a new creation that's created and founded in him. We don't have to build anything. There's nowhere in the New Testament where it says, go build my kingdom. It says, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and all things will be added to you. We're simply going to join him in his works, and we're going to be good with the fruit that he produces. And we're going to do it despite the obstacles, despite the opposition, despite the resources that are available to us, despite the uncertainties that we're going to face. Hope and I are talking about all the possibilities of bringing 150 people onto this campus and what can happen. I talked to the Kanakuk director yesterday who just managed himself through chaos with COVID. And he says, this is where we got it right. This is where we've got it wrong. We're behind you guys 1,000%. Let us know how we can help. Regardless of what this world presents to us as obstacles, we're going back to the tree of life each and every time. There's nothing more and there's nothing less. All right, I can't see it up there. So I wrestled a little bit with what I was going to share with you guys today, because there's a blend of, we had a lot going on when the brakes got thrown on the train, man. We were going to do these small adjustments to support raising, and we were going to change our mission statement, and we were going to slowly build out some bases, and we had some fruit going on there. The front brakes got thrown on the bicycle. Where's Becca? And over the handlebars we went. I've done that, Becca, so sorry. That just slipped right out there. So today we're picked up, and the Band-Aids are coming off. I've got my own Band-Aid. You know how this happened? Nope. I was really hungry. I was working in the garage, and I ran inside, and there was a big pizza on the counter, and I grabbed a piece and put it into my mouth, and it was hotter than the oven. And so I spit it out because it burned my tongue, and as the cheese came down my chin, it took the skin with it. So the inside of my lip has no skin on it, and if you make me laugh, I'm going to cry. So that's why this looks like this. I'm bleeding on the inside, literally. Okay. So hang with me as we walk through the balance of some things that God has been storing and leading us towards over the past year, culminating a discussion that started 7 months ago in a room where we said our mission statement doesn't capture where God's leading us. How do we begin to capture that and look at it? I'm going to walk you through some of the tenets of that. Then I'm going to transition to everything's changed. We've got a mission. We've got some focuses. I'm going to talk about some short-term focus and some long-term focus. But in the midst of that, we have 70 less folks eating lunch with us today than we did a year ago. And in the midst of that, we needed to relook at the way that we're structured to make sure we're effectively gathered around our mission. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then I'm going to give a quick financial update. We're going to talk about partnership development, which there's a great deal of good news in that realm. And then we're going to get after it, okay? So, mission statement, the long version and the short version. And then I'm going to unpack a series of long discussions in a few minutes, and then I'll open up for questions. We exist to awaken and activate Christ's followers worldwide into their identity and their role in God's kingdom. All right, so let's pause there. We're going to say it two different ways, and we're going to do it together. And then we're going to say it the second way, which is the short version, which is what we'll try to remember, because we all have short memories. So, one, we exist to awaken and activate Christ's followers worldwide into their identity and role in God's kingdom. The short of that is the underlined piece. What do? That's it. We take them to Christ, We encourage and exhort them to participate in the ways of Christ. And as a function of that, the world will have a new form of doing life on this earth. That's what we're going to do. So why did we make this change? We dealt with a lot of words and concepts as we talked about and prayed about what this new mission statement would look like. In Awakening, we wanted to capture the fact that we are evangelistic in nature. We want to see the spread of the gospel, both in terms of, sometimes the baptisms we see in our own participants when they come here for training camp, in addition to all the people that we get the opportunity to interact with, both on the field and in the United States. So it's evangelistic in nature. When we say the word awakening, we want to bring people to Christ, whether they know Him or frankly have become latent in their identity in Christ. It's that simple. We want to introduce them to the Spirit. We form ourselves around the Spirit that is stored within us. And we want people to have the capacity to be encouraged to hear His voice in their own life so they can walk in a spirit of unity and a bond of peace amongst other brothers and sisters in Christ, and we can be an expression to a world that desperately needs us in this day. So we want to see an awakening take place wherever we go. We want to activate, because there are a lot of people that have said yes to Jesus, but have somehow come to the conclusion that it's a waiting game until they can go to heaven. We don't believe that is true. So we believe in activation. Activation comes in many forms. It becomes one with their own ownership of their relationship with Christ. They are not going to get it through a pastor. They are not going to get it through a squad leader. They are going to get it through divine revelation from Jesus Christ because they've come to the conclusion that He is trustworthy and worthy and has given us the gift of the Spirit. Amen. We're going to be active in listening and responding to the Spirit. We are not a rational bunch. We are a Spirit-led bunch. So we're going to follow what Jesus says at the individual level, at the corporate level. Because the other thing that we know is when you guys listen to the Spirit and I'm listening to the Spirit, the Spirit does not speak disunity. We will row in the same direction. And we will fight for unity in the Spirit as a body. We're going to engage in intimacy, community, and mission. Those are core terms. Everything that we do is going to be focused on our intimacy, ownership of our relationship with Christ, on journeying together as the ecclesia. Guys, we are a church. We will operate by the example given us the New Testament as a church, right? And as a result of that, we will be a church that is on mission. And that mission is to express Christ and His kingdom to a world that doesn't know Him. It's not more complicated. We are life is mission, mission is life. You do not have to work for a nonprofit. You do not have to go overseas. Everything that we do all of the time presents the opportunity for us to be an expression of Christ. In our work, in our play, in our family, in our conflict. In politics, in religion, we are an expression of Christ and His kingdom. Life is mission, mission is life. We're going to innovate. Makes a lot of people uncomfortable. Makes me uncomfortable at times. Seth and I have always interesting conversations about possibilities. Having that innovation at our core today is actually a very valuable value. I'm going to share a little bit with you in a minute in terms of what our short-term priorities are. But if we do not remain flexible and we do not remain graceful and we do not work in the expectation that obstacles are going to be placed at every corner, and if we do not operate with the perspective that the Lord will find a way and we are simply to seek Him and follow Him, it may not follow the reason and the ration or the history and the path that we've traveled in the past, then He'll take us where He wants us to go. We're going to be innovative. We're going to pursue ecclesia. We seek to live a kingdom way of life. We seek to invite others into that kingdom way of life. Worldwide. That's that tricky word that sits right in the middle of that mission statement. And I'll tell you, it's been in and out of that mission statement in our discussions with leadership a dozen times. But the thing that we wanted to capture is the reality that we are not purely a participant-driven ministry. We are a participant-driven ministry that engages strategically all around the world for the expansion of His kingdom. When we look for the model of that, we look at Matthew 10. And Matthew 10 is the sending out of the disciples that Jesus initiated, and He sent them into places of peace, places that have a presence, have a series of relationships. Our ministries around the world are expressions in that local community of who Jesus is, and we seek to come alongside that expression, understand their context, understand what the Lord's led them to do, and fuel the fires of their ministry where they're located. So when we say worldwide, it is ensuring that we're looking at both sides of the equation. If you were to wake up in the morning to start a business that was focused on expanding feeding programs, compassion programs, maybe even church planting programs around the world, you probably wouldn't start with 18 to 24-year-olds on the other side of that equation. Except that Jesus did that with his disciples in Matthew 10. And so we say, okay, we embrace the tensions that exist between a participant and the desire to be a healthy, effective, faithful, Christ-following expression all over the world. You know, when we started these bases some time ago, it was out of strategy to a large degree. We prayed about where he wanted us to have long-term presences. As we sit here today, I can look back and see how he was working towards the day a long time ago. Because those expressions are going to become cornerstones that give us capacity to effectively walk out our mission going forward. So the worldwide is both. It's in the lives of participants in discipleship, and it's awakening and activating local people no matter where we go. It's a both and. It's identity and kingdom. It's rooted in Christ. The tree of life starts moving over here. Guys, we're grabbing it and pulling it back. It's rooted in him. We are not looking for compassionate strategies. We are not looking to be builders. We are looking to be Christ followers. He will point us to the building. We're going to join him in his expression. So that's the breakdown of a transition that will take time on the websites, in our communication. You're going to start seeing emails from me that continue to reinforce it. We're going to put a series of teachings together that draw us back to it. And I'm going to pause there and say, how does that sit with your spirit in terms of the transition? Good? All right.
Around a lot with each word, but we managed to encapsulate it without using a word like mobilize. Because I know that means like to go. And what if we're paused from going? And so I'm really impressed that you guys were able to do that, to take the heart of what it was and use different words to express that same heart.
I would like to take credit for that, but this mission statement has not changed from December, which was before mobilization was ripped out from underneath of us. But thank you. This is, our heart is, it doesn't say draw people to us. It says go and make disciples.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So we want to point people to Christ. What we do know is when we point people to Christ, there will be a radical journey ahead of them. We facilitate that. Thanks.
Yeah, something you said, Bob, when you first started talking, that this wasn't going to be inspirational. But the second you started talking about it being about Christ, the foundation, I definitely was like, let's go. That's why I'm here. I'm here to bring people to Christ, to awaken and activate Christ followers. So thank you for that. So it's happy with me.
That's resting deeply in me. I have a strong set of views around politics, around economic matters, around formations of government. I've studied the founders and the way that they've thought. I'm convicted as I sit here today that I've tried to take the politic and the kingdom and try to create this thing between them. And I'm interested in the kingdom. And the moment, which I have allowed it to occur, that tree of life gets replaced with a good strategy or a better business plan, I am going to fight it. We are going to fight it. We are going to rally ourselves around. The vision that I had was a clear one. I'm not even sure I've shared this with Jeremy. But you were drawing over here, and I was starting to read the verses that you were putting up. And what I saw, it was profound to me, because the tree got moved from this corner to here, and there were 4 deep. I don't know what that means. I've had some people give me some additional words, but Jeremy Searball, he's got like when he flexes, he's got these muscles in his arms. And I could just see it. He was holding onto the tree, and he had somebody else here, and they were fully leaning out to the next person and the next person. And the fourth person was reaching out and grabbing somebody that we were going after and pulling them up. And there was surety across all four of those people that that person was coming with us. And I don't know what that means. I think there's a lot of prophetic elements of that. I think there's a lot of leadership starting to rise up into new positions of authority, responsibility, that the character to form around that is happening in the midst of our body, that there is trust that's starting to happen in the midst of you guys with the people that are around you that give you the confidence and the willingness to take the risk to go out to places that you haven't been before. And there's a level of unity that says, yes, let's go after that one. There's one. Let's go after it. That's the picture that I had in my spirit. Amy, you got this? All right, say the short one, the short version. Okay. This has been discussed through with a number of the elders. Our board has reviewed it. You will see the same effective statement with G42 as well. And so we're building the same underlying DNA across it. All right, so that leads us to the fact that before all the transition took place, we had an organizational chart that was fairly unwieldy. And I had allowed it to continue to kind of move in ways that I was not serving my team particularly well. And so I've done a fair amount of praying around what should we look like going forward so that we have the right leadership in the right places, we have clarity of ownership, but also that ownership is focused on our mission. Like it's aligned to our mission, and we understand who's working together. The second thing is we want to really communicate a lot better. So let me get to it. I wrote down a list of values, like in creating the organizational structure, what was the value set that we wanted to create that organizational structure from? One, we wanted to be elder-led. There's been many seasons where there's been elders in and out. Sometimes they were positional, sometimes they kind of floated around here, and that's okay. We're going to talk about what that looks like, but one, it's going to be an elder-led body. The second piece is it's going to be structured around our mission. It's going to make sense in regards to what we're trying to achieve. The third piece is it's going to be focused on diverse leadership and perspective. And I'll tell you, that's been a struggle for me. Where's Erica? That's been a struggle for me. If she's on. Creating an environment where there is diversity, creating an environment where there are people that want to step into roles and that are ready to step into roles. It's been a challenge. I'd be less than honest if I didn't say anything but that. So to have me and some guys working around me that are old, like me, you know, how do you get past that? We have to work on it. It's happened at the board level. The last 2 board members have been an Indian national and a female. And the next slate of board members are very much reflective of our value. I can't really say who they are, can we, Seth? Not yet. Okay. You'll see. Evan's going to be on the board. We're getting a Brazilian.
Finally, some millennials up there.
Sorry, I don't know why that came to me, but it did. We need better communication. I just take ownership for it. There were things happening at the strategic objective level, like things that, if you look back, we've been doing strategic objectives for 3 years. They represent the underpinnings of huge improvements in our programs. They represent the underpinnings of the basis. They represent the underpinnings of viewing ourselves as a church that plants church. They represent the underpinnings of mission, intimacy, mission, and community. All those pieces were built in there, but for whatever reason, we did a poor job of communicating in a way that they really landed in ownership amongst the entire body. So we're going to change the way that we focus on that and better communication. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what we're going to call it. We're still dealing with the names, but the OLT and the PDL no longer exists. We're going to make some changes, and I'll explain it a little bit more in a second. There's going to be a director leadership team, which will be the folks that are directly on my team. And then in total, there's 15 people that are directors and or managers. And that's going to be the operating team that is responsible for communication to the whole body. So how do we achieve those objectives and organize it around? Let me share this with you. This is the new leadership team. How many of you can see this? You young people in the back? All right. Seth is leading the board of directors. I'll talk about who that is in a second. Dion is going to facilitate. He's been facilitating our coaching practice. Dion is going to also add on to his job description the facilitation of an elder group. These are people that you probably already know, but they are going to be given the position of elders and the responsibility of investing, engaging with us on a regular basis. And I'll talk about who they are in just a moment. One of the things that happened through the objectives is my left-hand person to help with strategic objectives was Kate Campbell. And Kate has sailed her ship down to Central America and off to wherever she's going. And so that's an important role in the context of making sure we're establishing the path forward and defining things that we're committing to so that we effectively communicate when we do and don't reach those objectives, and also effectively make decisions to depart from the path that we said we were going to go on. So we state the path and we depart from it when the time is right. So I've invited Ashley Powell in to the leadership team. Ashley Powell is going to... One thing you guys don't know, is Ashley here? There she is in the back. All those notes that went out over COVID, Ashley actually wrote them. She became my, I would give the facts, and Ashley would actually make it make sense to people. So Ashley and I developed really a neat relationship in working with that. She understands the gaps in my communication style that need to be bridged, and she has a very strategic mindset. So Ashley's going to be on the primary leadership team, and her function is going to be helping us facilitate the communication, the development and communication of strategic objectives across the whole organization. The other person that's joining me is Hope Mandola Wong. Hope has long had both the concern and the vision for the nature in which we communicate across the entire body. And so we're going to have two leadership teams. We're going to have this core leadership team. It's going to be called the director leadership team. And then we're going to have the management leadership team, which is this team plus all of their direct reports. Hope's job is to sit in the midst of this team as a member and make sure that both decision-making and communication gets cascaded all the way down through the organization. So Hope is going to own that piece of it. In terms of the organizational structure, and I'm going to show every org chart specifically, so I'm apologizing if we go through this, but I felt like this was something we should do today. There are going to be some not immaterial changes. So Bob Corder role is going to change pretty significantly. Bob is going to own facilities and events along with Jeff. So Jeff will be on Bob's team, in addition to finance. So Tara will be on Bob's team as well. Director of Awakening Journeys, big move, Chris. Welcome to the team. The Awakening Journeys are going to have three primary expressions. World Race, which will be run by Becca. Gap, which will be run by Hope. Ambassadors and Semesters, which will be run by Jeremy. In the process of walking through this, Chris approached me a few months ago and he said, I'm ready, man. I want to serve any way that I can, but I'm ready to roll. Let's go. He'd gone through that season of making the decision. And I approached the team and said, who should do this? And the consensus was, this is the path. And so I'm looking forward to working closely with you, Chris. Director of Field Ministry is Scott Borg, but there's going to be an expansion of that role. Is he laughing or is he smart? Has he got that smirk on his mouth?
He's smiling, you can see it.
My lips hurt. Scott is going to have Seth Powell, the austere regional team. Can we even call it a regional team anymore? It's like the global team. It's Josh and Seth Powell. You've got Riz there, you've got ministry set up. The other thing that Scott is taking, and I'm excited about this, both Bob and I have stormed the establishment of bases. Obviously, some of them pre-existed with Scott's leadership in Swazi, but there's a lot of new initiatives that have come up, and there's some really incredible things happening. Let me give you a little picture. At our bases, in a period of 2 months, I don't know how many tons of food we distributed in the middle of the pandemic, but we raised like $130,000. Is that right?
Yeah.
In the last 60 days to support food distribution in Cambodia, in Thailand, in Swaziland, in Guatemala, in Nicaragua. It's all happening. With Scott's leadership, what we're really going to focus on is helping those bases develop a locally led strategy so that when we're there, they're effective in mobilizing us, and when we're not there, they're effective in walking out the mission of that base, which there's many flavors in the way that they operate. So Scott's going to take that piece. There are some pieces in the middle of that, like the long-term missionary team, that we're still working to sort out. But Bob and Scott, I think Bob's going to still play a role there, and Bob still has a strong hand in some of the bases and has a desire to engage there. The beautiful thing is between Bob and Scott, they're brothers that work real well together, and I don't think we'll have any trouble finding that middle ground there. Not that there was an issue, but we want them both to be able to participate in the field work that's occurring. The next piece is discipleship schools, which I will put CGA and G42, as well as missional communities. I'll take that to a concept that you're going to continue to hear more about, because there's a lot going on behind the scenes. We called it the Global Kingdom Network. Remember that thing? It's now called the Kingdom Life Network. We've made changes to it to more fairly reflect what it is, but there's a lot of work going on behind the scenes, and that's what Ethan's primary focus is going to be. Now, Ethan doesn't work for AIM directly. You know, it's not an organization, it's an organism. So we've committed to work with each other across organizations to achieve the objectives that we have. The one person that's going to have a foothold in more than one place is Travis Bonning. So Travis is going to continue to work with the CGA team. And he's also jumped over onto the marketing team to help strengthen our sales process over there, and is doing a good job with it. So he'll have a foot in both sandboxes. Have you not heard that before?
No, I have. I was just picturing Travis and Sam.
All right. Bill Swan has got marketing, admissions, and sales. And Joe has parent ministry and donor development and acknowledgement. Right. So we'll walk real quickly through these. Board and elders. Our board currently is Roger Solhoff, Seth Barnes, Gay Campbell, James R., and Mark Gottlieb. And there's going to be some change in the board. We've got a couple people that are rolling off, and we've got a couple of really great candidates coming in behind them. On the elders, we got Dion and Renette, Roger and Rosie, Seth and Karen, Tim and Karen, Gary and Lisa, Andrew and Mo, and Ethan and Kristen. So that's and it's likely to expand as we go forward. Most of those folks are not staff members, formerly staff members here, and that's intentional. But we want to put some weight to the fact that we've got people that meet the quality of elders that are here to encourage you guys. They're here to be resources for you. We had a really neat time, and one of the Becca shared with me, the squad mentors came, and there was a prophetic morning with the squad mentors. I want you guys to know that meant more to us than it probably meant to you guys. To see you guys stepping into this new season was a great encouragement to us. The role of eldership is going to be present. It's going to be engaged.
Bob, on the last slide, where does STM fit?
Great question. I missed it. STM is going to move in under Scott. STM is focusing predominantly on strategic ministry partners and bases. Those shorter-term trips fit more nicely into the strategy of the bases and the short-term ministry partners. And so Seth Jr. is going to be working on Scott's team.
And then also, what's a more robust
So 1 Timothy and Titus are the standards. We're talking about getting together for dinner and a weekend of prayer twice a year so that we can get the revelation of God of where he's taken us. And I'm having direct discussions with these individuals and have dinners already set up with a few of them to really encourage them, because, so often with volunteers, they don't know their footing. So if you were to talk to Rosie right now, Rosie sent me an email this morning. She wants to understand, like, what are you asking me to do? So we're going to walk into, this is what we're asking you to do. And they have authority and they have responsibility in the midst of us. And we are going to seek out that wisdom and authority in the midst of us from those elders. Is there going to be formal expectations in terms of, hey, you're over this or you're over that? I really don't want to do that. I want them to be available. Now, we know Tim's involved with World Race. We know Rosie's involved with Hope in Gap Year, but that wouldn't preclude them from jumping into any other area as well. And they're here to support and encourage.
So Beauty for Ashes also with STM.
Yes, stays.
And then I was going to ask, Seth, as president of the board, that's a new thing? I saw it on the previous slide.
Well, he leads the board as it exists today. There's another chairman right now, but I'll leave it to Seth to articulate it. But on an ongoing basis, Seth is a permanent resident on the board and will continue to facilitate the board and what's happening with the advisory board, as well as having full authority in every other area of the ministry to operate. So it goes without saying. I serve with Seth, it's, yeah. Yeah. Just being clear. Where do you want to drop Global U on here, Seth? It's a...
Global U, I think what Bob is saying is that this could grow into something that is truly an organism. We're going to have to come off of these org charts. These org charts are helpful, but they're not the whole picture.
Right.
And it's relationships. Like, how do I fit on this? Well, hopefully I can serve some of you guys. We're all servant leaders. So that's what I'm here for. Like, I want to serve wherever I can. And that's my succession plan. It's always been, how can I serve Bob so that he can someday step into doing what I've been doing? And then how can I continue to serve? I'm hoping to build up Global U as a part of this ecosystem. What we need is more businesses that can give us jobs so we can do tent making as well as support research. And we need mobilization tools that mobilize more guys and girls.
Amen.
I'm seeing those two things in the ecosystem as gaps, and I'm rushing to fill those gaps. And if all of a sudden, we've got hundreds of people coming through Global U, man, the ecosystem's going to be robust. We're going to have more marriages, for one thing.
I don't know. I have nothing to add to that. let me tell you. I want to add to what Seth's saying. When we've got an organization that's growing and we don't fast, and we're trying to figure out things that we don't know, and it's growing so fast that we are adding leaders in places that maybe haven't had the opportunity to establish their capacity to lead, it requires a lot of program, lots of rules, regulations, boundaries, expectations. When you get a group of folks like what we've got here, Beauty for Ashes, you've led hundreds to thousands of people in Beauty for Ashes. What is our youngest squad mentor in terms of number of squads? 3 squads now? 2 used to be the maximum, now the minimum is 3. And we've got room to improve. We need to support better. We need to do lots of things better. But at the end of the day, we have people that have demonstrated the capacity to represent Christ well, to lead people well, and with that, it becomes more of an organism than an organization. So this is for the purposes of clarity. Who do I ask? I've got an idea. Who do I take that to? This is to bring that. But underneath all of this, I'm prayerful that there becomes a level of trust that we've got your back. And that you understand what we're trying to do here. You understand what the Lord's called us to. And you have the freedom to iterate and to move because you have demonstrated responsibility, faithfulness, and character that lines up with the authority that you've been given over time. So go. Go. We're going to train, we're going to encourage, we're going to change the program, we're going to tickle around with training camps and make them bigger and make them smaller and do bases and not do bases, always trying to improve. At the end of the day, you know these people. Scott, Bob, you know the people at the bases. Beautiful conversation last time with Guatemala. They approached, I want to set a call up with you guys. We've got some ideas we'd like to do with you. This is 6 weeks ago. Well, what's your idea? And they a little bit reserved, like, it's just an idea, so don't, but we'd like to start a sending school here. What do you mean by a sending school? We have a lot of Guatemalans that are engaging in our ministry, and we've got some relationships in the Middle East, and they would like to go, but we think they need some preparation. And oh, by the way, we've got a number of GAP kids that we're really excited about that are thinking about coming back to us. And what we would like to do is to partner with the local seminary and have us add the missional sending component of it. We want to prepare people to send to the nations. Okay? So where's the bad news in all of this? Well, can we do this? I'm like, yeah. So that's that natural expression with a calling underneath of it. And the Lord divinely inspiring multiple people towards the same end where there's unity. And they're going to go do something that we weren't thinking about. That's an organism. That's not an organization. In January.
First class.
That's the type of iteration that I'm talking about. That doesn't excuse us from communicating with each other so that we can coordinate. But it does give us the freedom to do the right thing, led by the Spirit in the moment of our leadership opportunities. Let me go back. So with Bob, he's got the finance team. He's got LTM with Crystal, Caesar on the facilities team, and Jeff on the events and facilities team. Chris has got responsibility for the gap year program, the semesters program, and the World Race program. Scott will have Seth Powell and Josh in the global ministry team. The base leadership for all of our base locations, as well as short-term missions with Beauty for Ashes. And Joe, how many of you know Joe Rogers? Right? Yes. All right. Joe's been around here for 25 years, has led hundreds of trips, has deep relationships with Indian reservations in the United States, lost his beautiful wife a couple of years ago, lives in Colorado, and is working with Seth Jr. Seth's going to be strengthening his team come January with some additional folks. We'll explain a little bit of that in a second. But Joe's on our team. Ethan's got CGA and G42, as well as missional communities and some other kind of expansions of what it looks like for people to journey in a kingdom way of life long term. And then Bill's got Ashley with admissions, Daniel Bisgrove and Dennis, Joe, Evan, Charmaine, who's, well, I take it back. There are more than one people with a foot in both sandboxes. Where's Charmaine? There's Charmaine. Charmaine's writing with her left hand, and she's answering calls with her right, or the other way around. So she's doing a lot. And then Travis is leading the sales team with Casey and leading Jennifer with our support raising. All right. Director of Donor Development has got Joe with Christina, Lisa, and Betty. Lisa is busy these days. Is Lisa here? There she is.
God bless Lisa.
We love you, Lisa. You've been here how many years, Lisa?
Off and on for 30.
Okay, 30 years. There you go. There's an elder in the house right there, her and Rob. All right, so let's talk a little bit about short term. One of the things, there's emails that go out, there's some communication. I'm realizing that as a function of the distance that we've had, that there's a lot of things that are assumed that are communicated that we've not done a great job communicating. And I haven't sent a communication out in 60 days, so that's on me. I committed every month. I skipped one I apologize. I'll get back on track. So,
Forgiven.
what's that?
You're forgiven.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, what's happening between now and the end of the year? September Gap will start in Gainesville. Right now, we have about 120 people committed. We got about 30 on top of that are leaders that will be coming. We will have people showing up here towards the end of August. And this campus is going to look radically different. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like because it's going to impact everybody. We're going to convert the lower building to accommodate the capacity. Between the top floor, the bottom floor, and this floor, we can meet socially distanced sleeping requirements by the state of Georgia for 150 people. Thanks to Jeff. Jeff, are you here? And his team. Jeff's got CAD layouts of where everybody's going to sleep, and we're probably going to go as far as to tape off those areas. So make sure they're in. Significant program development is required. Hope and her team and Rosie have been working on what is going to be we've got a lot of questions yet to be answered. Just to give you a sense, as the regulations exist today, those participants will have to get a COVID negative test to come onto our campus within 12 days, and they will not be able to leave our campus under current regulations. So the next question you ask, are the regulations going to change? Probably. To what? I don't know. To be honest, it could go either way. If things chill out, it could get more liberal. Honestly, with the way things are going, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they don't start drawing back.
Is this expectation for us as well? That we should get time?
I'll talk about what we're going to do in just a minute. So the next bullet point, Ashley. Dramatically increases the need for competency regarding challenges presented by COVID, a culture shift. So this past weekend, I really started to dive into the reality of COVID in the current day in the United States. In that research, I came across Kennecott camps. How many of you are familiar with Kennecott? Kennecott they have thousands of people that go on their camps every year. Seth Powell and I last week were looking at some of the ways that they prepared to bring people onto their campus. They were very well prepared. They had some standards that were pretty strong and egregious. And I was looking at them kind of like, wow. And the newspaper articles came out on Thursday or Friday that they had an outbreak that within 24 hours went from 0 to 40, within 48 hours went to 81 people, and took out 2/3 of their staff. So in the midst of having to mobilize hundreds of people, many who were sick home, they had to do it with 1/3 of their staff because it took them out. So I emailed him over the weekend, and he says, here's what we did really well, and here's where we completely missed it. And so you're going to start seeing a steady stream of expectations. I'll give you some examples. As it exists today, when we're together in environments like this, we're not wearing masks. That's going to change. In situations where we have people coming in from the outside, they will all be tested. Until things change, they will probably not leave this campus, even though we are trying to design ministry in Gainesville for them to go to, which we hope we get the privilege of doing. There is a possibility we will not get to do that. You are going to see electrostatic machines that blow a chemical that kills anything that it touches from a viral perspective, running twice a day across all 15,000 square feet in this building and the building upstairs. You're going to see a staffing plan where we're all moving up there, and we are going to take a portion of our leadership, and they will not be coming on campus if they are not required to engage with Gap Year. In the event there's an outbreak and somebody like me is in the middle of the outbreak and I'm down, and there's decisions that need to be made to move other people, there will be people that will be working from home that will be in a position and given the authority to make those decisions. Coming and going as we please. We're young. Here's what we've tried to do, guys. We're young. You guys have an assemblage of risk that's different than most of the United States as a function of who you are and where you've been, right? we've given latitude, and this is real latitude. If you don't feel comfortable, do not come in. We've said that every Friday except for one for the past 60 days, right? So with that wasn't our words, that was our heart. If you don't feel comfortable, don't come in, work from home. We are not going to create risk where we don't have to. We are going to get to December with the highest potential of stewarding 150 people that don't think like we do through a season where we're going to maximize the potential that they finish with us. That's it. And that's I love you guys. You guys know the risks. You all are making the choices you want to make. But we no longer are just making choices between us. We are making choices on behalf of some other folks, and a whole lot of them. And the implications are going up. So we're going to have to up our game a lot. So you're going to see some really disciplined approaches. Like in the beginning, it's likely that the squads can't cross paths in any way. They will not walk the same stairwells to their meeting rooms. They will have an accountable temperature check that is device-driven so that we're not putting it in the responsibility of squad leaders to write something down and make sure that we've got squad leaders checking temperatures all the time, but we actually have an accountable approach to it. And even with all of that, we could have some events. I will share with you guys in the last 48 hours, how many of you go to Lanier Hills Church? They've shut that thing down Saturday. They've got an outbreak, they've got people sick, and it's gone. My next door neighbors are, I think, 86 and 84, or 87 and 84 years old. They're dear friends of ours. They live right, if you drive into my driveway, to the house to the right. They go to Airline Baptist. There's 52 people in their Sunday school class. 41 have tested positive in the last week. And there's not a single one of them that's under the age of 40 years old. So they were counting the number of people that they think are on ventilators. So we ain't playing. We're going to steward well. We don't mind taking risks. We're going to invite people into this. We're going to make sure they know what those risks are. And then we're going to do things better than we've ever done before by being disciplined to reduce the risk that people end up sick. Because I don't want to go to all this work and then not experience the fruit from it. So that's what we're going to do. So you want to know what we're doing in the short term? We're doing that in the short term. Me and Seth Powell, Bob Corder, Jeff Tyner, Scott Borg, Betty Means, we're going to be working on a plan. And it's going to be coming. We got a very short period of time to do it. You just got an email in your inbox. If you get exposed, I won't say names. We got somebody close to this community whose whole family has gone down. They've been in touch with people that have been in touch. If you've been 1 degree away, you need to stay home. You need to let RISC know. Send an email to RISC. Know what you've been exposed to, and we'll make an individual case decision on each person whether or not you need to come back, or if you need to take a 14-day hiatus with a negative test before you get back on campus. So this campus has got to be viewed as a bubble. And to the degree we're not going to pierce that bubble, and as we get closer to that time of gap coming on campus, the standards are going to go up. All right? We're still assessing the World Race launch for October. We have a meeting this afternoon. We had set an internal date of making a decision today. We may or may not make a decision today. There's a lot of information. In that information, there's a lot of possibilities, which are a bunch of maybes. If you were to take what's available to us today alone, it's going to be pretty stinking hard to get a squad on the field. But we're not playing with today's information. We're playing with what could be. So we're getting a team together. We'll help make that decision. Right now, we've got 40 people in the October launch projected. Where's Austin? Yeah, I think we got 40 people in that window. A bunch of those are from August. August has softened a lot. October's holding steady. We'll see. Next piece. The bases, 11 and 11. I actually had different words. I had 11 and 11 is no more, is what I had in this presentation. Somebody said, you should probably change that. It means more than I gave it credit for. So I changed it. Having a journey that has a series of 30-day countries at 11, that ain't happening. You'd be on airplanes all the time, going from place to place. So I'm telling you guys this so we can be transparent with our people and encourage them that the Lord is moving. We see our bases as neural networks that have more context than we can ever gain from any other newsworthy site. And we're going to lean into that possibility, including our capacity for ministry. It's not just about what is the health condition and can we fly there. There are many countries that don't want to see Americans. So even if we can get there, and even if we think there's legitimate health care there that can support us as we're there, if we can't do ministry, we've got to consider that. So there's a lot of dynamics that are in play with that. Semester's ambassador and World Race America are leading the charge. As we sit here today, through ministry partners that we've had for years, including Bella Goose and now Asheville and the Peer Foundation, we've got an ambassadors team working with the Peer Foundation for a month. We've got a team engaging with international students that are predominantly Hindu and Muslim as RAs in dorms for students that have come into the Dells, Wisconsin to facilitate the water parks there, and they're being taught evangelism and to live amongst them a kingdom way of life. In Asheville, you've got a discipleship movement going on there that's pretty neat. It is a missional community that continues to grow, and they've got one of our teams there as well, and we're talking to an old partner in Pittsburgh called Urban Impact. Their son was here yesterday. It's a killer ministry, presents lots of opportunity in the United States. It is at the center of racial reconciliation. You've got the African coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Ben Roethlisberger, who used to be a scoundrel and has found Jesus, working together to impact all of Pittsburgh through that ministry. Nearly all of our short-term engagements are being deferred till 2011. When is our next planned Beauty for Ashes? 2021. I'm old. I was in Colorado. Okay. So they have Beauty for Ashes has a trip in October at this point. All right. So midterm focus, I would love to be able to give you guys a bunch of vision and so forth, but honestly, we have been laying down one foot in front of the other to get to where we are today. But between now and October, your leadership team is going to be praying into what the Lord is leading us to. I can guarantee you it's going to be a strengthening of our bases. I can guarantee you it's going to be flexibility as it relates to mobilization so we can stay on mission and deal with the world that we live in. And I can guarantee you that the tree of life is going to be in the center of all of it. That's all I can promise you. The flip side of that is a budget, because the budgets and the strategic plans kind of go hand in hand. And so I don't know if Tara's on or not, or any of the accounting team. I've kind of had that CFO hat on, and I'm actually really encouraged by the progress that we're making and looking out and understanding our financial condition. We've put a ton of work, because I'm sitting in the seat of some level of fear that we might run out of money. But that's not the case. We've got a clear path given what we can see today, and it's sustainable, and it's in no small part because of what you guys have been doing from a support raising perspective. I'll talk about that in just a second. So we're going to be establishing budgets and strategic objectives between now and October the 1st, and you will get those no later than September. And then we're going to get back to the monthly fireside chats. It'll be virtual for those that can't be on site, and it'll be somewhere for those who can. I'm not sure it'll be in here. That's what my point is. Quick financial review. I even hesitate to put this in here because it's like, wow, everything changed. Prior year's revenue, this is through May. So this is just taking a picture, October 1st through the end of May. Last year, we had $12 million in revenue. We had budgeted 11.7. We have 8.6. So the bottom's dropped out of it. If you look at the last couple of months, it's even more significant than that. We were down like 80% from last month, something like that. Expenses, we are starting to push down. We also have in that the expense of bringing everybody home, which was not insignificant. So we've got a good picture of the expenses. So our net, as we sit here today, is a negative $2 million. Last year, this time, it was a negative 1.45. So not surprising given everything that's happened, to be honest. So here's the good news. We have tightened down. We've done it quickly. The support raising that you guys are pursuing, which I'll get to in a second, is going to significantly give us capacity and flexibility moving forward. We got the PPP loan. So we got a loan for $1.15 million from the federal government, and it is anticipated that loan is going to be forgiven, meaning we don't have to pay it back. And that is a more than likely expectation that that's going to happen. So as a result of that, you can look at a lot of things. The thing that I look at is our rainy day fund. It's called free cash. At this time last year, we were sitting at $1.54 million. This year, we're sitting at 2.7. That's good. The reality that we need to understand is we'll end up using a lot of that because of this season of not having revenue coming in because participants aren't coming in. So Tara and I are looking very closely at how many participants we think are coming. How's fundraising going? What are the other expenses that we've reduced? How can we support the bases to get them through this season so that they're ready to fire up on the other side? All that's being managed very closely. And if we assume these basic tenets, that we have 110 gappers show up, that the launch for World Race in October and January is where it is today, and I actually cut it 40% from a projection. So I'm saying I think it could be at risk. If we do those and get back on track at that steady state, starting in April of next year where STM's starting to flow, then we've got a path, a financial path forward, even without using some of the assets that we have available to us, like our land, to sell. So good job, guys, is all I have to say to you. Good job. Good job on the support raising. Good job on the expense reduction. Good job on taking 2 or 3 jobs that you didn't used to have, which all of us have done because we've just had to do that to make these things work. All right? Thank you. Partnership development update. We made a big shift. You guys came with a big yes in your spirit. I want to give you some cornerstones of that. Before I do that, we've got this little window here left, guys, of like a month. And I know some of you aren't experiencing that because you got a lot going on in the next month. But for some, the next month presents a window of opportunity. Make sure you stay focused on this. It's a critical piece of our path forward. As we exist today, 7 of the 42 people that are at management level and below have reached their phase 1 objective. Of the people that have increases in support raising required by the new policy, 85% are at or above the trajectory that they need to be on to reach it at the end of the phase 1 goal. Good job. For those of you that are struggling, we're behind you 1,000%. We want to support you, encourage you. Don't forget that if you reach your phase 1 goal by September, there's a $1,500 bonus that comes with it. So for those of you that are on the precipice, pour the coals to it. It's another Kentucky term. Get it going. Finish it up. Let's do it. It helps you prepare for the next season. It sets us up well to navigate financially into the next season. And for those that get to phase 2 within 3 months of completing phase 1, there's another potential of $1,000. That's been in from the beginning, just reminding you. Walking through this process, I've had so many of you tell me, going through that presentation, even if you don't use it in the way that it was designed, has walked us through the path of our why. Why am I here? Is this worth it? How do I articulate what I do and why I do to my folks? And that's been a real positive. And I want to say, we've engaged stewardship ambassadors. Whether you engage with him or not, he's given us a great price. He loves our ministry, but he's available to you guys. And he is dying to help you guys be successful. And he is good. I have been around folks that understand how to establish a picture of what you do and get it to people in the business world. He's as good as anybody that I've met. Do you have to follow the exact path? You are each your own individual. But I can guarantee you, if you sit down with him, he will help you prepare for your discussions with your donors and you can get there. A couple of folks have really had some profound successes, and I wanted to give Kate Goller a second to get up and share a little bit about what she's been able to do.
Hey, you want to bring a stool up here for me? Can everyone see me? I am. So I was accepted onto the World Race almost exactly 8 years ago this week. And I have been fundraising basically ever since. And it has continually been something that is just on my task list. Like I kind of shut off the spiritual engagement of it. And so what I want to encourage y'all with today is wherever you're at in your partner development process, I hope that this story encourages you to engage with God throughout it. So I didn't notice that trend over the last 8 years that I was just, turning my brain off to the spiritual engagement of partner development. It was there. I was going to get it done. I knew why I wanted to do what I wanted to do. Nothing was going to stand in my way from doing it, not even money. So I was going to figure out how to make that happen, and just did. And then when Dave and his son-in-law came out here in September and started, or whatever, last fall, I don't remember the actual dates, but when he came out here in the fall last year and we started talking about how we would be increasing our fundraising goals, again, I noticed this flip in my brain where it was like, okay, just tell me what the new goal is. I'm going to get it done. Don't worry about it. Make it happen. I'm meant to be here. And then, can you guys hear me? Great, okay. So then this spring, we have everything happen with COVID, and we bring all of our people home. We're in a global pandemic. Millions of people are unemployed, and we're doubling our goal. So the amount of mental shutdown that I had in that moment, because I had been cultivating that in my life for 8 years, was very intense. I was like, okay, new goal, no other priority. I am going to get this done so fast. I emailed Dave so many questions that he didn't even email me back. He called me and he said, are you a perfectionist? Which God had recently brought that up in my life anyways. I was like, well, yeah, I was a gymnast, and a 10.0 is the only acceptable score to have, so you could say that. And he said in his 30 years of doing partner development with people, he has never, ever, ever had anyone ask the amount and the kinds of questions I was asking about putting my spreadsheet or my presentation together. I was like, never? I thought these were really common questions. I did not think that they were odd at all. But it was in that moment that God switched something in me and helped me realize that the perfection and performance drive to partner development was not in line with the spiritual why that he has given me to be here and maintain the longevity in which he is calling me into a lifestyle of ministry, which is my whole life. And I was called in that moment to start engaging spiritually in what was going on in the partner development. And so what I have seen over the last 4 months that I've been doing this now is that as I was putting my presentation together, not only was it something that I had to do, but I got to understand my why in a deeper and more meaningful way than ever before. It was like articulating what I've always known and been compelled by in my spirit. I was now having words put to it that I can now communicate that with anyone. I'll start talking with someone in the grocery store or when I stop at a gas station or wherever it might be. And I'm having these conversations now where because I've gone through the presentation, because I've shared it, because I've talked through some of my insecurities and intimidation with Dave, my why is in me in a new way where I'm having these casual conversations with people and getting to share the mission and heart and vision that we have to awaken and activate Christ followers all throughout the world. And I'm having people who are so encouraged that there's a body of believers who are doing what we're doing. I met a guy one time at a church that I randomly went to because there was a speaker coming in, and I happened to sit next to him, and we started talking. I shared about my job. I called him up to share about the presentation, set up a time to talk. He couldn't believe what our heart was for Gen Z, and he said, I need to get you on a Zoom call with our entire board of the church because we don't have this heart here, but we need this heart here. So there's opportunities that are coming up like that over and over and over again where I have come across many times where people have not said yes to giving in the way that I might think in my head, like, oh, I bet they're going to give 100, and then they're like, oh, I don't think I could give it all right now, but I'll be praying for you. So like I've come up to these points of rejection or like, my expectations weren't met. And it has definitely been disappointing at times. But to be able to share what we're sharing, to be able to share the why and the heart over and over again and see everyone has been encouraged that I've talked to. Everyone has shared prayer requests. Everyone has asked to pray for me even. So to see the body be awakened and activated through these conversations that we're having, God will always be faithful to provide the financial end of it. I've always seen him be trustworthy to be faithful in what I need, but now I get to actually be a part of awakening and activating the body of believers, even when it doesn't look like what I hope it to or expect it to. So I hope that you guys will talk with Dave. He's awesome, and help me put together a presentation that was not perfect, but is great. And I don't know, I just think there's so much opportunity for us here to share more than our financial needs. There's an opportunity here for us to engage with God in a way that's going to build our trust and understanding of his faithfulness in a way that we can't find that any other way. I prayed 6 years ago. It was the 4 months between when I got home from my race and when I started working here full time. I had no idea I was coming to work here full time, but I told God, it was like a prayer. I was on my knees, and it was a prayer. It was like he dropped it into my heart, and I was already praying it back to him before I realized what I was saying. And I remember after I said it, I was like, oh, no, what did I just say? But I had said to him, I said, Lord, you can do anything that you want to do in my life that will keep me on my knees, always in need of you. I never want to be able to stand on my own without you. And fundraising, every time partnership development comes back up, God reminds me of that prayer. It would be so easy for me to get a job somewhere else, a guaranteed salary, but that is not what he has called me into, and it does not cultivate the kind of trust and faith that I get to have in my God as it does when I get to live life this way. So I know it's unconventional, and I know a lot of people look and say, why are you doing that? Like, especially my family, they're like, what are you doing? It's kind of embarrassing. But I get to have trust and faith in God that I couldn't have it any other way. And that's what I hope is put into all of us throughout this new level of partner development that we're doing. So.
Thanks, Nick. Appreciate it. I don't know if y'all can hear me or not. Two things before we get into some quick questions. One, I apologize for going over. It started a little bit late, but so I apologize. Second piece is that I realize that some of the information I just shared might be different than what was communicated recently, so we'll get an email out related to the bonus structure. So I may have grabbed the wrong information, so we'll send an email out. It's not working. Okay. So either Travis or myself or Jennifer will send an email out of clarification on the bonus piece. So from there, I want to ask, are there any questions? Anybody have any questions?
Okay, so this goes way, way, way back, but I don't really think I need that. But okay, so all the way back when you were talking about having a diverse leadership, my question is more specifically about like what does that actually mean, and what are we doing? What steps are we taking to particularly reach Black Americans and bring them into this organization and have them in leadership positions? What does that look like?
Consideration for the board, so we can have that perspective at the highest levels of leadership. Beyond that, I think there's some things that we need to seek to understand that are not simple answers to simple questions. Over the coming weeks, I'm working with Erica, and there are going to be some Black leaders that join us for Monday morning worship and begin to share, and I'm going to invite them into some additional opportunities for discussion and opening up and creating relationships within that realm. And that's what I can tell you for now. All right. Lewis, I'm going to ask you to come up and close us in prayer. It's on you. Thanks. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
Lord, I thank you so much that we get to be here, Father, that you have called each one of us here by name for your kingdom, for your purpose, Lord. And I just ask that you would give us a heart of praise and honor and worship all day, every day, Lord, that we would be on our knees to give you everything. So, Lord, I ask your blessing over what you have for us here, Lord, and what you're going to continue to do through each and every one of us. Lord, let us have hearts to serve, Lord, to love, to give what you've given to us so freely. So, Lord, I seal all that was said, and I ask that you would just give us more of your love. In your name, Jesus, I pray. Amen.